of Javario Bowie, as well as the Hillsborough County State Attorney Chief of Staff Gary Wiseman. I assured Javario's family and our community back in May that we were committed to getting justice in this tragic death. I stand before you today to announce that we've arrested 15-year-old Jamar Moore in connection with the murder of 14-year-old Javari Bowie. He's charged with 1 count of first-degree murder, 1 felony count of carrying a concealed firearm, 1 felony count of tampering with physical evidence, 1 misdemeanor count of minor in possession of a firearm. The loss of a child, especially in a tragic manner, is unfathomable. I'm incredibly appreciative of our detectives' meticulous work. And when I say meticulous, I'm talking like detective work that I'll get into a little bit later that is beyond reproach, that I haven't seen in a long time as being in this role. On April 17th, after 3:30, officers responded to reports of gunfire at the 1400 block of West Bush Boulevard. Upon arrival, they found Javario near the railroad tracks between Bush Boulevard and Rome, where he had tragically died from his injuries. We released this video 1 month after the shooting. It shows Javario walking with other individuals less than an hour before the shooting. Through detectives' tedious work, we identified Jamar Moore as the individual in the video and the last person known to have been with Bowie just minutes before the shooting. Detectives were able to find records of Moore's communication with Javario before the murder, as well as social media messages, notes, and search history, all implicating his involvement in the murder. In one of the messages exchanged on social media, Moore also discussed details of the murder that were not publicly available to anyone. We cannot accept or be okay with this happening in our community. I want to thank our state attorney's office, the U.S. Marshals Task Force, and the hard work of our detectives who never gave up on a case with limited leads and limited cooperation. Their work is why we're here today. I hope today's announcement of an arrest gives a small sense of closure to the Bowie family and sends a clear message that our detectives will find you and hold you accountable if you commit any crime, especially a crime with a firearm in the city of Tampa. I've said this before, and here with yet another tragic example, I've told you that juveniles don't get a pass and they will be held accountable. I want to send a clear example that the city of Tampa, no matter your age, you will be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. Juveniles in Tampa do not get a pass. If you want to commit a crime, especially a violent crime with a firearm, don't do it in Tampa. This is just another example of how you will be held accountable. We could not do this without the help of our state attorney's office, and I'd like to bring up Gary Wiseman from our state attorney's office.
Thank you, Chief. I'll start by just thanking you all for covering this really important story for this community, so thank you. My name is Gary Weissman. I'm the Chief of Staff at the State Attorney's Office. The Tampa Police Department's relentless pursuit of evidence in partnership with one of our most dedicated and talented prosecutors, Chinwe Fawcett, led to the arrest that's being announced today. 231 days have passed since April 17th, the day Javario's life was ended, and this arrest. I mention that because cases and crimes sometimes fall out of the news. But the men and women of the Tampa Police Department, the men and women of the State Attorney's Office will continue to pursue evidence, truth, and justice. Now, there'll be a tendency today to focus on this young man who was arrested. Who is he? What's going to happen as we prosecute the case? I will share with you something that State Attorney Suzy Lopez has said over and over. When you make an adult decision with a gun, you will face adult consequences. There is no more adult decision in our criminal justice system than the taking of a life. So yes, it is our intention to pursue this defendant, to prosecute this defendant as an adult. And while the tendency today will be to focus on that arrest, it is our belief that this is an opportunity to think about Javario, his life. He was in middle school. He loved football. He loved his family. And yes, some of you know that State Attorney Suzy Lopez attended this young man's funeral. It is our belief that this is an opportunity to think of his family and what they have been through. For 231 days, they were left to wonder, who did this? All the while, going through the indescribable grief of the loss of a child. And so today, this arrest brings some closure to the investigation. But I'll remind you of the words of Thaddeus Bullard, a friend to everyone in this community, at this very podium, on this very case, when he said, "Nothing can replace what was lost." I want to thank Chief Burkhoff for his leadership, the men and women of the Tampa Police Department for their amazing work, and I wanted to say for Javario and for his family and for our community, we will pursue justice. Thank you.
The detectives that work so tirelessly on this case are motivated by the family. The family's been involved routinely. I've had text messages back and forth with the grandmother, and we've spoken with the mother, but that's what drives our detectives. And that's what's out there, that's what's helping them, and that's what led to this arrest is the involvement of everyone working together. So at this time, I'd like to bring up the family to share a few words.
I've been living in a nightmare since I lost my son. And now I can feel a little bit of closure. Thanks to the detectives. I know who now. Now I just need to know why. I appreciate all of you.
As a father, I feel an obligation to protect my daughter. And as a grandfather, my biggest commitment is to protect my grandbabies. And to realize that I could not protect my grandson has been a really difficult to process and to walk with. Today is one of those days where, we're deeply saddened that it was another 15-year-old. And at the same time, we know that the streets of Tampa are safer today because this hurting soul is going to be held accountable. And so I'm just grateful that the chief didn't allow this case and the detectives didn't allow for Javario's case to lay dormant and not be worked. And I just really want to appreciate you, Chief, for seeing Javario. Javario was a good kid, and he had the rest of his life that we were hopeful for. And his death has not only affected the family like in the obvious ways, but his little sisters have to endure, going to school at the same school that this individual may have went to that school. And so it has made life really, really challenging and difficult. And so I just want to thank the Tampa police and the detectives for continuing to work this case and for not, leaving any stone unturned. And we're here through the duration. Thank you.
So as we're still grieving Javario's death, we're having today a sense of closure in an arrest that is a collaborative work with the family, the state attorney's office, the U.S. Marshals, but the detectives' hard work in applying technology in this case is what made the difference. So we'll take some questions.
Chief, what led to this arrest, April 231 days ago? Where was there a break in the case? Was someone put that for a time?
Well, first identifying who was in the video, and then trying to establish probable cause, which is not easy when we don't have people speaking. And that's where the latent work came in with the detectives as looking at social media accounts. And as people are changing accounts, staying one step ahead of the criminals in this case, is all the work goes out to the detectives who are scouring through social media accounts, getting subpoenas, preserving information, analyzing the information. And before you know it, they come across that piece of evidence, that's probable cause, and then working with the state attorney's office is getting those charges, and that's why we're here today.
I wonder, in those social media exchanges that you saw, did anything shed light on why Javario might have been involved?
It's clear there's a feud. Javario's involvement, we don't think is as much, if anything, but that's still part of our ongoing investigation.
Chief, there was some speculation, discussion several months ago that he may have been lured to this, to where he was eventually shot. What can you tell us about how this all kind of unfolded that day? Was that part of it?
So yeah, we do know that he was lured there, but the intention of shooting him is something that's still part of our ongoing investigation.
Do you know who the second person in that surveillance video is, and if they were questioned as well? And in the video, which one is the boy that was arrested?
So our detectives are working on the additional individual, and that's part of our ongoing investigation, and all of that will depend on the outcome of what's happening now. So we'll release that information as soon as we can get it to you. I'm sorry, I said it. Well, we believe we have the person responsible, but there's always a chance that additional arrests could be made.
15, obviously, we can't legally have that gun. Do you know where that gun came from?
The gun that was used in the murder, we're verifying when we arrested him yesterday, he was in possession of a firearm, which is a similar firearm. We're attempting to validate it to see if it's the exact same one. But we do know that the one he was in possession with yesterday when we made the arrest was stolen out of Miami.
Jasmine, Michael, are either of you comfortable sharing with us how you want Javario to be remembered? Because of course that's our focus.
We want Javario to be remembered as this goofy, giggly 14-year-old kid who loved football, loved teasing his sisters, and was really protective of his mom. He loved his dad. He loved his uncle. He was like a vibrant, young, feet growing little 14-year-old kid. My mom, his grandma, called him 10-foot, right? Because his feet were always growing, and he could wear my shoes, right? And so we want him to be remembered for that infectious smile, that that's how we want him to be remembered,
Any other questions? All right. Thank you.